Hey everyone, welcome back to AWS Connections. I'm Nick Raboy, and next to me I have Michael Palermo, and we're going to be showing you how to use, what are we exactly doing, Michael?
We're going to get into the Places or Search API, and specifically we're going to be looking at the RESTful way to call it directly, and we're also going to look at how to use the AWS Serverless Application Repository, set that up so that we can also set up our own microservice to call, and how that underlying call is also using our API. So we're going to see both ways.
Awesome. So if this is your first time tuning into the show for AWS Connections, basically what we're up to is we're trying to show you how to use different here products with AWS. Right, Michael?
That's right. I mean, we've discussed already how to use map images. We've discussed how to use our geocoder. And of course, for today, it's going to be our Places API. So just a different approach to how you could access our APIs so that it puts you, the developer, in more control over how that data is filtered, or even some potential custom business logic that you want to implement in a central location.
Awesome. So before we get started into the core material, I want to go over some logistical notes here. So we are live. So if you have any questions, add them to the chat. We have a few moderators. You can even say hi. So Peter Malahan is orchestrating in the background. He'll also be in the chat, as well as myself. Peter is referenced as here dev in the chat. When it comes to the channel in general, we recommend that you follow us. So by becoming a follower, you'll get notifications on when new streams start, and other minor details like that. You can also subscribe to the channel. And any bits that are added that you donate will be donated to various care funds that we're going to be talking about in a future episode. So why don't we jump right into the core material?
It sounds good. Well, first of all, I have to say, for all those that are on today on this special day and time, thank you so much. Last week I was clearly under the weather. I felt really bad. I was actually going to try to just do it anyway, but for your sake, I'm glad we did not do that, because I've made some tweaks to the thing I wanted to demo anyway, and I like what I have so much more now versus what I had last week anyway, so it ended up being a good thing. But appreciate that, and look forward to sharing this information with you. And so, but even before I touch on that, are you feeling okay, Nick?
Yeah, yesterday I said that I had allergies. I think I'm actually sick, not allergies. So
yeah, so it's not possible I could have done anything about that, because we don't even live in the same state. But yeah. I feel bad for you, but thanks for hanging in today and enjoying this ride. So here's what I want to do. Do we have our code screen? I can't tell.
Not yet. Peter, you want to throw that up for us?
Let's switch it over. So I'm a little circle guy now.
It looks like we're live, Michael.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is actually something we did on our previous episode, and that is using our geocoder. And the reason why, Nick, I want to discuss this is I want to at least set the baseline or understanding of what kind of data actually already comes back when you are doing like a geocode call. So sure, why you would use geocode versus places is where I'm going with this. So this is a basic query to our geocoder, just putting in the city name of Phoenix. That's it.
Yeah.
So with that there, I already have populated my app ID and app code. I'm going to go back over to our browsers right here. And what you're going to see is a blank screen.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I'll refresh it. And I'm going to open up our console here to explore the object that's returned, because that's really the only UI we did for this. And I'm getting down into the actual results of this geocode call. As I go in here, notice all I asked for was, if you really think about it, in most cases, Nick, when we're calling geocode and I provide something like Phoenix, what is it that I'm really after?
What we're really after is the city.
Well, I already provided the city.
Yeah. Oh, you're maybe the state is what you're after, or the latitude and longitude?
The latitude and longitude is what I was thinking, right? Like, yeah, that's usually exactly what we're after, like this, you know, this.
Yeah.
That's what because usually when we call geocoder, we're thinking, okay, here's the city. I need to add a marker to the map. The map needs a lat long, so here we go. However, as you said, there is some additional information that we can get. So just by putting in Phoenix, I'm getting things like what country it's in, what state, the state it's in, what county it's in, things like that. So my whole point in wanting to bring this up is just to provide, hey, if you need that kind of location data, the geocoder might be exactly what you need. For example, you just put in a city. I mean, let's just mess around with this a little bit, Nick. I'm going to go back over to my code. Why don't you give me a city and state to put in here?
Let's go with where I'm at in Tracy, California.
So is it like that? TRACYCA?
Yep.
Okay, so I can put that in as a query. I'll save that, go back over here and refresh. Check out our responses. And as I scroll down into the results, you're going to see, and you'll be able to establish if this looks right to you. But, does this look pretty good to you?
Looks perfect.
Looks like your stuff. So if you were wanting to find out things like, what might be the postal code of Tracy, especially at this particular IP address that it's providing us, where I think is right here.
Should be the center of Tracy, right? Or is the center of whatever city is chosen?
Exactly, right. And another thing to notice too is you even get some bounding regions and things like that, if that's important. Cool. So all of the things that you would want like this, but what it's not going to return to you, Nick, is like, is there a nearby doctor? Because I'm feeling bad for you. Like maybe you're not feeling well today. Maybe I could have used like what doctors are nearby me. But I'm not going to get that here with the geocoder. And of course, that's because that's not what it's designed for. So if you just need data like this, what the county you're in and all this, great, use geocoder. But if you need something else, we're going to recommend using our Places or Search API. So that's going to be our focus today, is how to use this particular API. And of course, how to implement it the two different ways. So I am going to, first of all, for those that are viewing this right now, I'm just leaving this on the screen for a moment just to highlight, why use it. So, you could do a pure text string search just to find out data. You can also search for things that are nearby where you're currently at. And you can also sort things either by category or even see things by a distance or proximity. So that could be very helpful to you, especially if you're commuting or whatever the case might be. So this is some of the things, and you can search for a ton of stuff. What's going to be fun, Nick, about today's episode is that we're also going to discover how to discover what is available within the system. That's kind of cool. It's like a dream within a dream, Yeah. We're going to see something like that happening here with our stuff. So that's why we're going to use the Places Search API. I'm going to move over right now to my code screen.
Sounds good.
I want to show, I'm not going to do like, Nick, you are awesome to watch coding on your episodes and waypoints. I always love seeing you type. I love it when you forget things like the new keyword. It's really fun. Yeah. It creates a lot of drama. I like that, but I think my episodes will be more boring because I wanted to have a lot of it already typed out to avoid those kind of things. But I do want to talk about this. So you can see what I'm ultimately doing is I want to construct using our RESTful API down here. That's what this fetch is doing. It's like, okay, given this URL with a particular query, let's go ahead and, well, let me explain this little guy. So I'm just going through this URL one bit at a time. So the starting URL, the initial query, the query can be something like, in your case, it's probably going to be doctor. So I'm going to put that in there just to help you out here.
Thought you were going to mess with me and put like veterinarian or something.
Yeah, which maybe we'll test that. We'll see what happens. Yeah. But this @n variable or
Sure.
constant that I created. What all this is doing is saying there's a way to call these APIs to say, do I want something to be at a specific location, or do I want to provide more of like a region where it's in a region versus at a specific API?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So
It does.
you usually choose one or the other.
Yep.
So in this situation, I'm just saying, let's just use at. I'm providing the geolocation. So imagine this, if this were an app, usually this location is being provided maybe by your device itself, or maybe you used our location API or positioning API to establish where you're currently at, and that's going to be where you get this value, right? So usually we're not asking the end user to provide this. We're just getting that from their device. So imagine that comes from a device, and then I'm of course supplying my app ID and app code, which you see that I don't have any. Now I could just cheat, and I probably will, and just take it from here. But just for in the event anybody new is watching, I do want to show that you would get your app ID and app code by going, once you've signed up on here, I would go to my projects area in my profile, and usually the name provided here looks something like freemium something something with the date. I just renamed it to evangelism demos because that's what I use this account for.
Sure.
And then the very first one, as you've mentioned in your episodes, this is for our new JavaScript API, which is an API key. But for RESTful situations, we want to use the app ID and the app code.
Just to clarify, the API itself isn't new. It's just how we do business, right?
You mean the new JavaScript API?
Yeah. We had a JavaScript API, so it's not like it's brand spanking new. We only had REST before, right? We had an API. It's just an updated version of it.
That's correct.
For clarity.
Yeah, just in case I'm confusing on that.
Yeah.
When I'm speaking of our JavaScript API, I'm talking about the one you'd probably implement in a web page.
Yeah.
And it just has a new version number, 3.1 and higher. Now uses just a single API key, where prior to this version, it also used an app ID and an app code. So thanks for clarifying that. So I know I already have these values in my code editor, so I'm just going to swap over and just take them right from here and put them into these values in the RESTful call for places. Let's see, app ID check, app code check. I have my URL to the RESTful API there. We're going to display our results in a div on the page. So I think we're ready to run this. I'm going to save this, go back over to our page here. Actually, I'll go ahead and bring up this page. So here is the results that we got back. And I want to talk about these results.
Sure.
And
I
also,
have my own questions as well after.
Pardon?
I have my own questions for you after as well.
Oh, cool. Well, actually,
After
why
you
don't you
explain.
ask those right now, and then I'll get into these results.
All right. Well, just in case you were going to explain it anyways, I was going to. First question is, you use the at. So what kind of radius? Even though that we're looking at a certain point, what's the scope of the radius for the places? Is there a scope?
So there is. I can't give you the exact radius, but I can give you this clue. It has a lot to do with the precision of your location. So let me go back over here.
Really?
So you see how I have it down to this fourth area? You know, the more you add here, the more precise that's going to be.
Yeah. All right.
So,
that makes sense. So
actually, the broader this is, the more is encompassed when we're using at, right?
Sure.
So I'm glad you asked that, because obviously the in is going to give you more control, right?
Sure.
But in that case, this has a measure to do with what is going to be around. However, let's go back over to the results and take a look at something. By the way, I'm using these coordinates, which I believe, let's go back over to the thing here. Okay, so this is in my local area. So this is doctors for me. That's not going to help you right now, but at least, you know, I know what doctors are nearby. If I were to also go into our console and take a look at the objects, you're also going to see a variety of this information also listed here on this page.
Yep.
So vicinity is basically the address that's being pulled up.
Yeah.
And also, you'll notice this is also really important because, and I need to highlight this, because we're using this version, or I should say this feature of our Places API called Autosuggest.
Yep.
Right? It is going to return multiple types of things. Let me explain what I mean. So look at this. Look at our result type here.
Yes.
Our result type is a category. It's not an actual destination. So what this is saying is if you're interested in this category, hospital, healthcare facility, to get something more specific that would be fine-tuned for searching based on category, it's automatically coming up for us.
Got it.
Now, I also want, so all these other things that you see here are actually locations, right? But then let's look down here at our search results. You'll notice that I just have, do you see way down here below doctors?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. These are a result type of query. So for example, let me just go back up and, or actually go back over here. We're gonna have a little fun with this. So I'm gonna show you Doc. You know, what's up, Doc? Right?
Sure.
And we're also, why don't you give me your coordinates for Tracy?
All right, let me dig them up. All right, you ready for the latitude?
I'm ready.
It's 37.7397.
Okay.
And then the latitude is negative 121.4252.
Thanks. So what we've done is two things. We've switched the coordinates, and we've also switched the query just to be doc. So with that saved, going back over here, I'm going to do a refresh. And you can now start to see a variety of different things popping up here.
Yeah.
Now, you'll also notice document, doc, docs, and doctor are appearing.
Yeah.
Can you guess what you might use this feature for?
If I want to know what types of things I can search for?
Yes. And you could technically, if you were to filter your results to only give you result type of query, you could have it so that as the user is typing something, it can pull up a little drop down of suggested values that they can just select.
Yep.
You with me on that?
I'm with you. I do have one question now.
Let's hear it.
I don't know if we're going to get into it. I mean, Tracy is a pretty isolated place, but if you're in a busy place like Seattle and San Francisco or New York, is there a limit to the amount of results that come back? And how do you worry about that information? Do you know?
So the amount of information that comes back is really going to be based on how much is available. And you will notice that, or at least let me see if it's on here. No, it's not on this particular API call.
Because I imagine if you put in a vague query like doc, it's going to find a lot of results in more congested areas, right? Is it going to return all of them, or is there going to be paging involved? Or?
There will be paging. So it's not showing it right here, but you will see it pop up in another way we make the call.
Got it.
And I'm glad you're asking, because that could be exactly why you might want to make some changes to what we're doing.
Sure.
So just to reiterate, we have a result type called category, which is what this is. So if I want to know the exact category, this is the result type I would filter on. I also have a result type here of place. So if I just want to see the places returned, I can also filter on that. Notice that a distance is provided for each one of these places. The distance is based on the actual latitude and longitude we provided that we were at. So this is 128 meters from that exact geolocation that you provided. And of course, based on the type, you'll see if it's a place, we're going to get more data than we would if it's just a category.
Got it.
And then finally, at the end here, just again to showcase it, we also have the completion, kind of like your suggest way of grabbing. If I just put in doc, what could be some of the other ways that we could showcase this? So, for example, doc could be doctor, it could be doc, it could be a number of things.
Got it.
All right. With that stated, what I'd like to do is switch gears to our AWS discussion. So while we're still on Autosuggest, let's just see how this replicates now into an AWS environment.
Sure.
So in order to do that, what I've done, first of all, I've logged in with my AWS credentials. I'm in the AWS Management Console, and I have it as recently visited services, the serverless application repository. If someone were following along and they don't see that option there, they could literally type that full phrase out, serverless application repository, it'll show up. So I'm going to click it.
Perfect.
Now, when I go there, the serverless application repository is like a give and take. So for example, in this, it's letting me know if I gave anything to the repository. Have I submitted anything? So yes, here has, but not under the personal credentials that I have signed up with. But we're going to be using some of our own published applications. But as you can understand, I'm just logging in as me, not as here the company.
Yep.
But if I want to go to available applications and type here, let's say places, and search for that, then the first thing that pops up is here technologies, our places API. And what I want to do is click on this because this is how I'm going to get into the ability to deploy this places API application into my own environment. So I'm clicking on that. And what's really nice about these templates is that they provide everything that we need for it to generate the right code is being provided right here. So for this, I'm going to call it places Twitch. I'm also going to provide our here app code and ID. So I know I already have that from here. Oops, not from here. Let me go back. From here. So let's get the app code. And place that here. And then also our app ID. Place that here. So my name, app code, app ID, and I'm going to go ahead and click deploy. So what this does, as we've also explained on previous episodes, this is going to allow us to have a Lambda created. The Lambda is going to be a serverless little microservice that underneath the hood is calling our places API for us. It's also going to create an API gateway. So our own personalized custom URL to our own API, which then in turn calls our API.
Yep.
And so do you remember, and if you're not feeling well, I'm not going to hold it against you, but do you remember what were some of the advantages of having an API hosted as a little microservice?
Scalability.
So it could be scale.
And not having to expose your tokens?
Yes, that's one of them right there. So one centralized place to do that kind of token management. So whether you have a website or a mobile app of any kind, they can all use this same thing. So yes, you're right. Now you'll notice as far as our resources are concerned, I have this places function, and I'm going to go ahead and click on that because that's going to pull up our Lambda. And in our Lambda, just scrolling down, you're going to see that that same API that we were using before is also being used right here in this example.
Got it.
Also, did you have a question?
No, I said I got it.
Plus, you'll see that it's getting the app ID and app code from the process environment. So it's being stored in environment variables. So we don't even expose them here in the code, which is great. Now, for me to use this API, what would I need?
To
For me to
use
call
that, maybe an API gateway entry point.
Exactly. So the way I get that is I can go look at my applications that I've created, find the one that's called Places Twitch.
Yep.
Right. So that's the one. And then I could scroll down and I could see that one of the resources that was created with it was the serverless REST API. Right.
Yep.
So I'm going to copy this code right here and go back into our code editor, because I have something very similar set up like what we did for our RESTful API.
Sure.
You'll notice in our const, I don't have app ID or app code in here. Why would that be the case?
Because you're trying to use what's on Lambda rather than directly in the front end.
Exactly. So that's what we were just talking about. We don't worry about that management at this level anymore. We just need the code. So for API, I'm just going to put this little code in here. Remember, I saw that little code. In fact, I'll just go back so everyone can see it. This physical ID actually becomes part of the URL that's used.
Yeah.
So what I've done in our code editor is I've said, okay, I know that the rest of the line is the same. It's just this API piece is different.
Yeah.
So that's my unique identifier. And essentially, I'm kind of doing the same thing that we did before. I'm just searching on let's say these coordinates at, using our URL.
Got it.
I'm going to save this.
I have to ask,
please.
So on line 15, what's the deal with that weird comment? I've been trying to figure this out. I don't understand why it's there.
Oh, you'll find out.
Oh, I will? All right.
You will. You will see, and you will be grateful for asking. So stay tuned.
It keeps staring me in the eye.
Yes, yes. You'll see why here in just a second. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this up, this HTML page up.
Sure.
And I'm going to do a search. Now, in this example, instead of us having to modify the HTML document, I'm just going to put the doc here, and I'm going to click search. But before I do that, I'll make sure the console is up as well.
Sure.
Because I'm expecting something to not go so good. But let's see what happens.
You sounded like me during my streams.
So I'm getting this strange message about cores, right?
Yep.
So the reason why that happened is we don't have it set up to allow these kind of calls at this time.
Yep. I think Roberto Dev's on the call. I think he might remember from last time what we did to fix that, if we want to give him the opportunity.
Oh, I mean, sure. Yeah, I mean, the fix is easy, but does he remember?
Yeah, I don't know. He, I believe, if I recall correctly, Roberto Dev made it a big point to agree with us that cores is evil and awful and the worst part of anyone's day.
Yeah.
Right?
So what I'm going to do is just go back to that Lambda that we were in.
Sure. And
you'll notice that even commented on this line 58, we have this headers. This code gets created with that commented out. So if I make that now part of our response and I save this, now I'm going to go back over into our SAR places and I'm going to click the search button again.
Got it.
This time
worked.
It works because we fixed the problem, right? So this isn't as painful as the very first one we did, which actually required us to do some additional steps. But some of our other APIs, that's all we have to do is just uncomment that line of code.
Yeah.
Okay. So you could see that, again, we're getting the category back. We're kind of getting the same information back that we got before when we were putting in just doc. You with me there?
Yes.
Okay. Let's make things a little bit more exciting. I want to go back over to our documentation for places to our RESTful API call for places. I'm going to go to the API reference, and I want to expand here our request entry points. So let me get a specific one here, like here. There we go. So we've been looking at Autosuggest.
Sure.
And the entry point URI, just Autosuggest. But of course, there's other types that we can do. Now, one of those types is search. Now, notice it says it answers the what and where. So, you know, like given a specific location context. So it's not just about, it's going to be more specific to something we're trying to find. And you'll notice that it also supports this in parameter, where we can provide that radius. So I'm going to go in and to our REST code.
So we actually have a comment coming in the chat here.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is regarding using the in or the at, but the question is around, can you filter out the responses that are just text and not address information like that?
We're about to do it.
Got it.
Yeah, so this is the thing that I was probably feeling lousy to explain, and that is Autosuggest provides multiple response types.
Got it.
But if we're going to start using something like search, which is discover search, which I'm going to take that right there.
And just to say, for a time check, we're at 11:33 right now, local time.
I'm good. Thank you for telling me. So I'm in the REST Places API. And notice I'm just going to change Autosuggest here to discover search.
Sounds good.
I'm going to change this to in. And I'm going to put a semicolon here. And I'm going to say R equals 20,000. Whoops.
Your R kind of looks like
my R
a 4.
was a 4. Thanks. So essentially, my geolocation has this additional metadata to describe a radius.
What's the distance measurement?
20,000 meters.
Meters. All right.
Mm-hmm. And I'll still keep it at doc. I'm going to save this, go back over to our RESTful call for places, which is here, and refresh the page.
Yeah.
So when I do that, now I'm still in Tracy, right?
Yep.
When I look at the results, you'll notice that these results are all assumed to be destination. So I'm not looking at a result type anymore.
Yeah.
And you can see the distance of each one of these from the given point to these things here.
So I'm curious then, because 20,000 meters is, as far as I know, not a small range of distance.
It's not.
It's large. Why are we only receiving 4 results back?
My assumption is that it probably has a lot to do with the limited amount of data I provided because I only search for doc.
Oh, you think it needs to be more specific when we're not using the Autosuggest?
Yes.
Got it.
So keep that thought there. You'll notice that within this group, there's at least 2 that are under 3,000, right?
Yep.
So wouldn't you agree that if I come back over here and then change our radius to just 3,000, save that, do you think we should see some things disappear?
I hope so. Otherwise, I got a lot of questions for you.
So you could already tell, but clearly this is how it works.
Yeah.
Right. So this is how we can also do a filtering based on distance, right? Like I only want the things that are in a certain area. So everything's working there. Great. So now here's where the next challenge is. If I go back to my AWS code here, how would I add that? Can I just do that here? Put the in to be in.
Yeah, why not?
Add that. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. I'm going to put an R, whoops, semicolon R equals, I'll just put 5,000 in here.
Sure.
So I'm saving this. Now let's see what happens when I go back over to our SAR places. I'll clear the console. Let me refresh the page. And I'm going to search.
You didn't need to push the change back up to Lambda, right? Because it doesn't work that way, right?
Oh, you're stealing my thunder. So
oh, sorry.
So let's just find out. Let's find out. You're asking the right questions, man. You're all good. But it's definitely having an issue here.
Got it.
In fact, we're getting multiple issues. And the reason is it's basically you called it out already. Our underlying
That's what I
Lambda, our underlying Lambda is still using Autosuggest. Agreed?
Yeah.
So I would actually need to change this URL. Now, of course, that brings up probably more questions. You know, basically, when you create this Places API, it is only serving Autosuggest.
Yeah.
So there are ways that you can manage this. One way is that you could actually provide a query string that would be kind of like an API type. And you can pass in what this value needs to be through the URL. That would be one way. Another way to do it is you could recreate the Places API for very specific features. So you know how we went and created Places Twitch? Yep. Well, I could have one called Places Autosuggest. I could have one called Places, Search. And I could just have different Lambda set up just for those specific. So do you see where I'm going with that? Like, there's multiple ways to address this issue.
It seems like if you went the multiple Lambda approach, that might be a logistical nightmare. Am I wrong?
Well, it could be. I mean, but there could be advantages to that too. For example, in some cases, maybe not so much with Places, but with some of our other APIs, caching behaviors might be very handy to turn on at a certain API gateway level for certain calls than for others. So you may set something up like that just because it's what's best for the performance of the app, right? But in our case, all we're going to do is just make the change hard code. So I'm going to say discover/search, because that's the entry point that we're using. I'm going to save this. So that's the only change that I made to our Lambda. I'm going to go back over to Places. I want to go ahead and just refresh anyway. I still know we're going to have an issue, but let's find out what that issue is. So I'm going to put doctor. I'm going to hit search. In this case, it's probably still fussy about this right here. Oh, yeah, there's a number of reasons. OK, so let me go back over to our code. You had asked before, like you saw this work.
Yeah.
Right? We saw that this worked. So we would assume that it should just work the same exact way. However, now going to the mysteries.
Oh, there we go.
Comma equals, well, actually, that's not right. That @ sign isn't there. I don't think that's right. Or maybe that is. Yeah, it is. Control C. I'm going to put that here.
So you're saying that the fetch command doesn't automatically URL encode it for you?
So remember, we're doing two levels of things here. We're calling our API to another API. And in this example, we need to do the URL encoding up front when we're making this call.
All right.
I'm just going to make that change, go back over and refresh the page. And I'll put in doctor again and hit search.
Do I get to see this glorious day of Michael Palermo troubleshooting some code?
Probably. I got to see what I have done right here. Discover.
What's the error again?
Well, it's giving the error as if this wasn't happening.
I saw another error though. No?
I think, yeah, there was another one there, but let me just focus on quickly. Go back here. think just to play it safe. Whoops, wrong screen. This one here. So I think that's right. Here API may have taken. Let's see.
You want to throw that error up one more time on the screen?
They hit save. Sure, I'll put that error back up.
Failed to fetch. So you probably have a typo in the actual HTML file.
Promise then async. Okay, well, let's take a look at it just in case I did mess around with something down here. Right. Yes, that would be bad. Okay, so do you see anything off the top here, Nick?
Not in there, but I really don't think it's happening in there. I think it's happening in the fetch.
So let's take a look here. The @in is in. The geo is set correctly.
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, and that's the right. So we had this working before, though. That's the thing.
And go back to the error?
Sure.
So when you click on that URL where it says error fail, yeah, click on it and let's inspect it with Chrome. So if you click on it,
this one right here.
Yeah, click it, and then look at the response. Maybe nothing. There was nothing under preview.
You know what? I'm assuming %@C is a comma. I wonder if that's the problem.
Yeah, I don't remember the @ symbol anywhere. I've never heard of that.
So I think that might be the issue. Let me take the @ sign out, because that didn't look right to me. So %C, I still thought it was.
I think it's just %C.
Can you look that up? Can you do a URL encode on a comma and just see what that comes back at? Because I think I messed up right here, because I thought it was like HC or something like that. I may have misspelled it.
It's 2C.
Oh, the number 2, where the @ sign is also at?
Yeah.
There you go. I'm sure that's what this was. Okay, so save
That'll
that.
probably work.
Let's go over here, refresh.
Looks
Doctor.
good. You can go back to the console too.
And search. So yeah, everything's working okay now. Okay, so yeah, you finally got troubleshooting. So again, when we look at our results, you could see that the items come back. We could see all the distances now. And notice that I did put, in this case, doctor, the full thing.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that you were asking about before, and this could be interesting. There is a way to do it. I'm not going to demonstrate it right here, but I'll explain the concept. Do you see this next link?
Yes.
So remember you asked before, how many results are we getting? So we're getting 20 at a time, like a page.
Yeah.
If I want to get the next page, this would be the next API call. But notice that API call is our internal call to our API. So what you could do is, one, you can either cache this as a next call on the Lambda side, just in case you wanted to have a repeat call, and then call the URL with a query string parameter that literally just says next, and it would know to use this cached call. The other thing you could do is just take this context, because it's a big value, and just add the context as a parameter right here. See, I'm adding Q, but if I wanted to do a next, I could just append that context here, and that's all that's really needed in order to do that next call.
So we have some items coming in the chat.
Please.
So I only wear Lacosta said Vue.js or Riot. I'm thinking that was in reference to our errors that we were having, but I'm not quite sure. And then Parset07 if I'm saying that correctly, is requesting that we only use a dark theme for the demos going forward. So I guess that's just feedback for us going forward then.
A dark theme like what I have here?
Yeah, but well, I maybe yeah, so maybe consistency.
You mean between going from here and our actual screen, like here?
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, I could always CSS this up a little bit. Sure.
This parset 07 says Chrome has a dark mode now that we can actually make use of. I guess we can examine it offline for the next episode, right?
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Good feedback.
Perfect.
But yeah, that could become almost like a strobe light if done incorrectly. So I don't want to do
Might
that.
be
So,
frying some eyeballs out here.
right. Okay. So I'm pretty sure, just going back to, sorry. So just as a quick recap, if you wanted to use the actual specific thing like discover search entry point to places, like we did in our RESTful call, we just add that right here to the API call.
Sure.
And it's easy to just pass in the coordinates. You don't have to worry about the URL encode.
Got it.
If you're using the AWS Serverless Application Repository, just remember that you are responsible for the URL encode prior to the fetch. And that's all you had to do differently, essentially. Plus, change what the underlying URL is in the Lambda function itself. And I'll leave it as, there's, of course, lots of different searches we could have tried, but I think we've done the main focus of what I wanted to show, and that was using the various features. You'll notice that at the, I don't want to like switch and throw everybody off with a light screen again, but like the at our documentation, the Places API lists several of the entry points that you can use for very specific needs. So some of them are all just about discovery of what you can do. So it's more about category searching than it is about location searching and things like that. So I just want to let you know that it's by merit of changing that URL, you can change the behavior of the Places API. I also wanted to call out in the code itself that I did, and this will be made available on GitHub after this episode. I did an interesting check here. I believe it's, let me see where I did it. Oh, it's right here on line 29. I said, let items equal either response.results.items or just response.results.
Got it.
The reason for that is that if items is null, or undefined, if it doesn't come back, that means that it's using probably something broader, such as, or it's actually using something. Yeah, I'm saying this correctly. Let me go back. Let me just talk about this one. This one is if you're using Autosuggest.
Yes.
This one will be if you're doing something more narrow, such as search or explore. So, but once you get those items, then I'm just doing a check down here. If we have a result time of category, let's display it this way. If it's a place, do it this way. Otherwise, just show me the title and vicinity, because I know at this point we have it for sure because of the kind of results we got back. So that's what the display items is doing, is just displaying items in the area based on what type it is, regardless if I call Autosuggest or regardless if I call one of the other kinds.
Got it.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, so I have some questions to test your knowledge here.
Great.
Yeah, so I honestly don't know the answer. I've been asked about them in the past on the Places API. So let's say I wanted to do a search for multiple categories. Could I do that in a single request, or do I have to do multiple requests for that?
You could do it in a single request.
So how would you do that? Would it be like semicolon delimited or something?
I don't remember the delimiter. I actually think it is a semicolon, though.
Got it. All right, that's all I had.
Oh, okay. I mean, that essentially wraps it up. That's pretty much the Places in a nutshell that I wanted to show. I just wanted to recap again. If you're calling it like in our RESTful area, you just make these changes here. If you're going from the serverless application repository, again, the way we constructed this was the secret or the identity of our API gateway. And then the rest of it, you're just passing in the queries that you would normally pass into the API. It's just a pass through.
Got it.
All right.
So then let's, Peter, are you there? Can you bring us back into big head mode? Give him a second to do that. We'll just go ahead and outro with the logistical information for the channel and next episode, things like that. So this episode in particular, the one that you're watching right now, it's going to be on Twitch for probably in the next week or so as on demand, and then it's going to be migrated over to YouTube. So you could subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you still have questions after this episode, join us on Slack. We have a Slack channel. Peter, you want to throw Nightbot up in there to show the Slack? And then in addition to Slack, I definitely recommend that you follow all of us on Twitter if you're a Twitter user. Palermo, I think you're Palermo4, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am Enraboy, or you can visit the Here channel, which would be Here Dev. The next episode of AWS Connections is next week, right, Michael?
Yes, should be exciting. We're going to try something a little new and different because as I mentioned on your Waypoints episode yesterday near the end, I said, hey, I'm going to be in Mexico City for the AWS Summit. So I'll be broadcasting from Mexico City.
Awesome. That'll be interesting and exciting.
Yeah, and
sounds like a lot of fun.
We're going to talk about the weather.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to do that. I mean, every once in a while you have conferences, you have hotels with flaky internet, so we're gonna do our best to make this possible, right, Michael?
Yeah, should be fun.
We do have a new show coming up. Maybe you want to give some sneak previews into that, Michael.
Absolutely.
Because you're going to be the showrunner.
So coming up soon, I don't have the dates in front of me, but I know they're within the next month or two, we're going to be launching something similar to AWS Connections called Azure Connections. So this is going to be available for those that are using Microsoft Azure, and they're going to see it's kind of follows the same theme here, and that is how could we use the Azure functionality or Azure functions, kind of similar to the AWS Lambdas, and use our templates that we've published there, so you could see a contrast, how it works in a completely different environment, in the Azure environment.
Sounds like a good time.
Should be fun.
Do you have any
Might
other
even have different co-hosts for that.
Yeah, I heard I'm getting axed. You guys are all sick of me.
No,
so we'll see.
No, yeah, we just want to introduce more members of our team. So
Yeah.
look forward to that too.
Yeah. Any other shameless plugs you got before we sign off?
No, I just thank you for tuning in today. Sorry again for last week, not feeling well, and also I hope you feel better, Nick.
Yeah, I'll be fine. It's not that bad. It's just a little cold. Before we sign off today, just one more reminder: follow our channel so that way you get reminders of our streams, so you never miss an episode. And make sure those notifications are turned on. Hope to see you at the next episode next week. Thank you.
Thank you.